for joining. We are going to get started in about 2. We're going to give people an additional few minutes to either get in and get settled at the Board of Education or to get logged in on Zoom. Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Um, my name is Courtney Adams. I am the Family and Community Engagement Coordinator and the District Advisory Committee Liaison for the district. I want to thank you for joining our first general body 2021-2022 school year. Before we get started, make sure that anyone who's joining us Spanish meeting in Spanish has the opportunity to do so. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Camila Alvarez with the announcement and ask that we switch to the second slide of the presentation.
Is it working? Buenas tardes. Si están en esta reunión por teléfono, si está usando una computadora, puede escuchar esta reunión en español si usa los controles de abajo, de la parte de abajo de tu computadora. Ok. Y en la parte de abajo hay un control que dice que tiene un círculo y te va a dar la opción en cuál idioma quieres escuchar. Tenemos a alguien que le está haciendo toda la reunión en español. Gracias. Y si tiene alguna pregunta, puede preguntar ahora o meterlos todo lo que necesita decir en el chat. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. So we have a packed agenda tonight. I want to make a note for all of our presenters and for our guests in person and online. We do again interpreter, so please make sure that you're speaking slowly, maybe a little slower than normal, loudly and clearly into the so that she has an opportunity. So one, she can hear you clearly, and she has an opportunity to get all of her words out in Spanish. This is our first hybrid meeting. Meeting will have participants in person at the Board of Education and online via Zoom, so bear with us. Things might be a little, we might experience some delays or some technical difficulties, but thank you for your patience in advance. If you're on Zoom, like all meetings that we're used to after a year and a half, please make sure you mute your microphone speaking. We will be monitoring the chat and the Zoom. So if you have questions after a presentation or during a presentation, please go ahead and put those in, or you can press the little raise your hand icon and we'll make sure that we get to your questions. Now I will turn it over to our chair of DAC, Ms. Angie Lyle, to get us started.
Thank you, Courtney, and thank you so much, everybody, for joining us both here and online. It's not a hugely packed room, so that means there's more sandwiches for all of us to eat. So next time, please join us in person. We do have social distancing in place, and we're doing everything we can to make everyone feel comfortable. Um, I'm assuming that my What is DAC presentation will happen later, Courtney. I hope you can confirm that for me.
Yes, you are after Dr. Bedell and Miss Buckner.
All right, great. So at this time, I will introduce Dr. Bedell to come in and give us his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lyle, for your work and what you're doing to represent our parents with the DAC Advisory Committee. Wow, everybody, I'm just thankful that all of you are here. Those of you that are online, I believe we have somewhere around 21 to 25 online. And then for our parents who are here today, thank you for being here. It's been an interesting start to this school year. Doesn't take much for people to kind of figure out what's happening with the state of education here in our country. But as it pertains to our school district, we're extremely excited to be back in school and at least give it an opportunity, have an opportunity to educate our kids in person. Going through our experience last year where we were out of school from March 12th until March 15th, proved to be a pretty difficult task. And as a superintendent, I've said this over and over, I don't want to find ourselves having to go back into a model where we are full-blown virtual. A couple of things that we did do last year was that we did offer the Kansas City Virtual Academy that is running, and it's going very well right now. We have over 600 students currently being served in that program. We also started our evening school over at Manual Tech, which allows for us to provide educational services to students from 4 to 7 p.m. And then we're continuing to provide the significant amount of supports that are needed, whether it's the interventions, whether it is small group instruction, whatever it takes to work on helping to get our kids up to standard ready. That is the goals that we have. So I know there's a couple of burning issues that we need to address. The first one being around transportation. And as I've stated, we are having major issues with transportation around the country. This does not just impact our school district, it's actually impacting KCPS-TV. If you have not seen the latest, KCPS-TV has a number of routes that they're struggling to fill, and even though they have worked to partner with the school district to provide us with smaller vehicles that we can utilize at our schools that don't require people to have a CDL, they are also experiencing their issues. The state of Massachusetts, I believe the governor today deployed out the, I just blanked out, the National Guard. So the governor deployed the National Guard in the state of Massachusetts to help with getting kids to school. So it's a major issue. We were able to collapse routes, and today was the first day since the first day of school that we did not have a route uncovered. We had our bus drivers, all of our routes were covered today. We'll continue to monitor that, and hopefully things will begin to settle down. Also, as we begin to hire more people, it's important to share with everybody that it takes literally 2 weeks for us to be able to hire someone. All of the different steps that they have to go through, the testing, the drug testing, all of those kind of things, and then they have to pass a pretty rigorous test. It is literally a 2-week process before we're able to hire a new applicant to drive our school buses. So I do want to thank our team. Many people have stepped up, assistant principals, a lot of other people have been driving our mini school buses to help get students to and from school. And we feel like we are in a situation now where we're kind of managing this a little bit better. The next item is Infinite Campus. As you all know, the school district is going through a transformation with the student information system. Last year it was Tyler. This year we're moving to Infinite Campus. I know that has created a level of frustration for people who have been familiar with the old student information system. I've gone through a transformation before. They're not pretty, they're not fun. We tend to go into a valley before things get better. But what I can tell you is Park Hill's gone through this transformation a few years back, moving to Infinite Campus. Fort Osage is another district. And I can tell you, once we get through this transformation, this is going to make life significantly easier for the end user, which are you are as parents and also our students. And we're beginning to iron out a lot of those wrinkles that are in there, but I do want people to know it's not going to be perfect right from the jump start, but this is going to make life a lot easier for us as we continue to try to make our school district operate in a much more seamless manner. If you have not had an opportunity to download your app for Safe Stop for transportation, please do that. That went out yesterday. It takes a few minutes to do it. And that way you can look on your phone and you can track where your school bus is. So especially when it gets cold, you don't want to be in a situation where you're standing outside and the bus is running 20 minutes behind. You can look at your app, and this app will allow for you to make the determination on whether or not you want to bring your kid to school, or do I bring them out a little bit later, or to call the transportation department well in advance if you don't see that your bus is within the required minutes. And then the last thing that I have for you all, just around an update, is just around COVID-19. So the school district continues to work through our mitigation steps. There are a number of students that are quarantined in a couple of our schools right now. That is all available on our website where you can get the information. All of our schools have templates that they should be sending out to parents. Whether your child was deemed to be in close contact with another child, if there's a case in your school, every parent should be receiving communication, and communication saying that, hey, we had X number of cases in our school, but your child, after going through contact tracing, was not involved. Therefore, your child can continue to come to school. So we're going to continue to work through that aspect of it all, and most importantly, continue to operate with a high degree of transparency. This virus has not been easy. We will have our contingency plans available to share with the community. I will say this to each and every single one of you. The most that we can shut down our schools is 3 days, based on the state of Missouri. If we shut the schools down more than 3 days, then we will have to make up days on the back end of the school year. They do not allow for us to utilize alternative methods of instruction, X, which is what we were allowed to utilize last year. If we shut down our schools more than those 3 days, our school district, and then we don't make those days up, we do not receive funding. So basically, at this point, not only are we going to have to navigate what we're going through with the pandemic, but then when we have our inclement weather days, those 3 days were generally used for when we had bad weather. So if we get to a point where we find ourselves in that situation, we can see ourselves potentially having to extend this school year. And I felt like that created a lot of problems for us as we tried to move into summer school, only having 1 week between the end of the school year and summer school to start. But we'll continue to work with the state. I'm on a number of committees and advisory boards where I get to speak directly to the commissioner. And we'll keep you all up to date as we continue to progress and try to run this school district in the midst of this national health pandemic. So with that, I'll pass it back. And I know we have one of our wonderful board members here, but I'll pass it back to you, Ms. Lyle.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bedell, for that wonderful update. And next up, we would like to bring in Candace Buckner. She's a member from our board of directors, to give us an update of her own. Thanks. Thanks for coming in.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for having me here today. Before I get started with an update, I just want to kind of reset, and for those of you who have not tapped into the board meetings, the regular business meetings, just to kind of give you an update of why I'm here and what DAC meetings will continue to look like with board representation. So, I have been chaired. I am chair of the Communications and Community Engagement Committee, and we were just thinking about like where we are, where the committee was before, and really trying to reset on how we can ensure that the board is really engaged in hearing from stakeholders. And so there was a mandate that was defined prior to me coming onto the board, and so they were in the mandate were a few strategies that we connected with. So I just want to share with you what our board, what our committee strategies are, and then kind of lay out for you where we are now. So one of them is to ensure systemic and continuous public engagement to gather input related to decision making by the school district. The other is to deepen and strengthen board relationships with stakeholders. And the last one is to ensure accurate information regarding KCPS board, district, and schools is readily available and easily accessible to stakeholders. So with those strategies in mind, we were thinking, some low-hanging fruit is to be actively engaged with DAC, right? And to ensure that there is collaboration with DAC. And so that means we got to show up and we got to be here to listen and to ensure there's two-way communication. And so CCE proposed to the full board that we have representation at every DAC meeting, and this will serve as an additional opportunity for the board to hear feedback and to gain perspective. And this is also an opportunity for us to share key information with you all. So there will be one board member present at every DAC meeting, and we'll commit to attending to ensure that we're sharing key takeaways during our ad hoc report during our business meetings. And so I am here today. I know board member Jen Wolfsey is probably on Zoom. The next time we all meet will be November 17th, and Dr. Marvia Jones will be here. And then I think we have a layout with Jen Wolfsey coming again January 19th. Board member Ford will be here March 16th, and our board chair Nate Hogan will be here May 18th. So I will be sure that we share those things publicly in addition to me sharing them verbally, just in case you want to connect with one board member in particular. And so in the time period that we'll be sharing, our hope is to inform you all about upcoming board meetings and to highlight some agenda items that we want you all to connect with in particular. And then lastly, we hope to share our concerns or a call to action. And so with that, I am here today wanting to bring to your attention Blueprint 2030. I'm sure you all have heard it or have seen Blueprint 2030. Blueprint 2030 will define how KCPS should serve students in the future and the system level changes that we need to get there. It will serve as an update to the KCPS strategic plan, and it will guide our work over the next decade by outlining our 5 and 10-year goals. And so recently, administration, Dr. Bedell, has informed us that there has not been the level of engagement from stakeholders that we hope to have in order to make these decisions and to feel comfortable with it. And so that timeline has been pushed back a bit. We plan to vote on some recommendations on February 23rd. That's not very far. What I don't want to happen is that we come up to that February 23rd and say, hey, we have to push it out because we don't have enough stakeholder input. And so I know there has been some strategic efforts from administration to ensure that there is, stakeholder input, but frankly, we have not had enough. I can say with confidence that I cannot vote on anything regarding Blueprint 2030 and will not vote on anything regarding Blueprint 2030 without your input. And I said input because what I don't want is for things to be put together and then you all give feedback on what has already been put together without your input. And so it's important for me to define those two ways of engagement as I have before, because I think they're very different and they have different impacts on the district. And so administration plans to introduce scenarios on November 3rd. January 12th, there will be recommendations presented to the board. And again, February 23rd, the board will vote. It is critical that you all are engaged in these conversations. My hope is that SAC from each school will be engaged in creative ways, in robust ways. And not only do I want to hear from our families and from our community members, I really want to hear from our students. And so I will ensure that you all have my contact information. My email address is kbuckner@kcpublicschools.org. I also have a Calendly link, so you can schedule me straight from my calendar at calendly.com/schedulecandace. I also want to give you all an update on the CCE meeting that is being held tomorrow at 5:30. It will be virtual, and during that meeting, we will be talking about how the board will strategically engage with conversations regarding Blueprint 2030 and to ensure that we are getting ample stakeholder input. And our next board meeting is September 22nd. The executive session starts at 5 o'clock. Our regular business meeting, 5:30. Our regular business meeting starts at 6 o'clock. And that is with a property tax rate presentation and public hearing. So it's critical that you all are there. We understand how important our tax rate is to our district. So with that, thank you so much. I look forward to hearing from you all. And next week, you should look forward to hearing from Dr. Jones. Thank you.
Courtney, did you have an announcement?
Yes, thank you. I have a really quick announcement regarding Infinite Campus from the technology team. They indicated that this week, if you have not created your Infinite Campus parent portal, you will be sent again the account activation. They have changed the settings so that email should not go to spam anymore. So be on the lookout for that if you haven't received anything. If you still haven't received anything, feel free to give me a call and me an email. I can also look up your activation codes. I know there are maybe some issues with the technology help desk and the line. So you can give me a call at 816-418-7455 or cadams1@kcpublicschools.org. Also, if you have over the years decided to block any of our communications, you'll also get an email this week that says the same, that notifying you that you have blocked communications from KCPS. Thank you. Camila did put my email in the chat for those of you online. And you have instructions on how to unblock to make sure that you have all of our communications. Thank you, Angie. That's it for me.
You bet. And for those who are here, we'll make sure that you get that same information if you need it. Courtney's email. What was that? I liked seeing Courtney on the screen. We liked seeing you, Courtney. Okay, I'm going to try to. Here is the What is DAC presentation. Great. So my name is Angie Lyle, and I am a school parent. My kids attend Lincoln. We actually have another parent on the DAC board whose kids attend Lincoln. And then we've got a Paseo parent, I think Rogers, a J.A. Rogers parent. We have a teacher. You teach at, Kelly, you teach at King Elementary. And Steve is a representative from our community at large, a former KCPS student, right? Long time ago? Oh, no. Okay. So I just wanted to give you kind of an overview of who we are because we're just people like you. We like to get together and talk about issues, concerns that we like to share ideas and solve problems, and we like to work cooperatively with the school district to make our schools great for everybody in the district. The DAC is open to anyone with a personal stake, we call a stakeholder. If you're living within KCPS boundaries, you have a stake in this district and the success of this district. And so we like to invite parents and family, alumni, teachers, and all the community members to these meetings especially, and also to be a part of our committees. So the DACX Executive Board, we have a chair, that's me. We have a vice chair, Demonte, treasurer is Tiara. Our recording secretary is here, Steve, and our corresponding secretary, Kelly, and our parliamentarian, Marari. She's probably online. And we're required to attend. We have monthly meetings. They're not horrible, I promise. These volunteers also serve as chairs on various committees which meet separately. We also have what we call our DAC delegates, and that's where the parents come in. So DAC delegates are parents or caregivers who they serve on the board of their local school organization, and they were also voted in by that organization to serve as a delegate from their school. As such, they should be coming to our DAC regular meetings and then going back to their school and reporting what these meetings were about so that we can help get all of the information out to all of the schools. DAC delegates also get to vote on things that we decide to get involved in, and most importantly, they serve as a liaison between the school and the DAC's resources. I think I just mentioned that. As far as voting, you get to vote who gets to be on the executive board if you're a DAC delegate. What we do the work through those committees, like I said, those are open to all. And these are some of our standing committees, and then we have a couple of temporary committees. And so, for example, if your school doesn't have a tennis team, I think we just heard that Paseo was looking to start a girls' tennis team. And we know that there are a couple of tennis teams at other schools. And then our athletics committee would get involved in figuring out, the best course of action for that school to start a team. So these are the kind of things that we like to do, because we're passionate about the success of our schools, and we also want to empower other parents to feel the same, that they could have the experience at their school that they've always wanted. I am chairing the communications and the community engagement, so I'll be working with Candace and her chair and attending their meetings. And so if we chair a committee and there's a corresponding committee at the school, we will attend those meetings and find out what's going on and give our feedback to as available. We do have a legislative committee, and Dion is, I don't know if he's online, but he is the chair of that committee. I'm passionate on that committee as well, and I just had a sidebar with that committee because one of the things that is important about is to protect the funding for public schools. And our public funding is pretty much attacked at all levels. It's attacked at the city level and at the state level. And so there are a lot of parents who want to advocate both at Jeff City for state legislation that can bring us the resources that we need to make all of our schools great, and also parents that advocate here at the city level to stop what we would call these tax giveaways with the incentives that are handed out to developers to build luxury hotels and luxury apartments. So there's a new one that's coming up next week, and I have a handout if you're interested in finding out how to advocate on behalf of public schools that this tax incentive should not be handed out. It's for a luxury hotel right next to the Kaufman Center. And there are a variety of reasons why this is such a bad idea. But the school district itself has a whole page on tax incentives, why we need to advocate for our schools, because if we do want all of our schools to have all of the amenities that we're advocating for, then we need funding for that. And we need to be able to show up to some of these city meetings and get involved. So you can email, you can show up at the meeting. If you intend to show up to a meeting, I do recommend that you get in touch with Dion or myself to get on this committee with us so that you don't show up to City Hall for something that doesn't happen, because that frequently happens to us. Okay, and then we have just some temporary committees right now. We're working to redo our bylaws, so that's a task force. And all of us, every single one of us, are involved in the Blueprint 2030 task force because we felt that that was really important for all of us, honestly. So I will echo what Ms. Buckner said this evening about getting involved in the Blueprint 2030 planning process. So there's lots of ways you can join. If you want to be a delegate, you do need to go to your school's organization and get involved and get voted in as a delegate. But if you don't have a school organization, we definitely want to talk to you, because every school should have something. So we want to be able to give you the resources that you need to get organized. And then become a DAC delegate to represent your school. And then for everybody, you can join a committee, spread the word about our movement, spread the word on social media with sharing the school district's social media posts, and make sure that you're on our DAC email. Literally anyone can get involved in making our schools great. Thank you. Okay, so I guess I need to tell our next person. Oh, there you are. Yes, okay. Trevana Alexander, Tony, thank you so much for coming in to talk about Department of Student Support and Intervention.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I will try to speak slowly and clearly. With my accent, that may be a problem at times. So if need to be repeated anything, please let me know. But thank you guys for having me this afternoon. I'm super excited to share the amazing work we're doing in our Department of Student Support and Intervention across our programs. And I'll get started by just asking everyone, even us here in person and at home, just to take a moment and just sit with yourselves. It's the end of the day. We've probably all worked or did something with our time today, and to be here and just kind of sit and pick an emoji face. If we were in person, I would like thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs to the side, so I can kind of gauge the room and see how we're feeling, right? Because that drives my interactions. And it also helps me understand, if I identify behaviors in the audience, that something's already happened before you arrive today. So it's always good to just sit with ourselves and be mindful for a moment. I'd like to introduce you guys to our Division of Student Support and Intervention. These are individuals that lead our team of student supports, including our counselors, clinicians, restorative justice coordinators, and our nurses, to name a few, that really focus on the well-being of the whole child, the physical, behavioral, and emotional well-being of our students. Our team has been focused on Kansas City Public Schools becoming a model trauma-informed school district. And what that means is that all employees within Kansas City Public Schools, educators, facilities, executive level members, understands, number one, what trauma is, number two, how it impacts individuals, and number three, how we respond and engage individuals who have experienced trauma. It also guides us to understand the trauma that we ourselves have experienced and how that drives how we respond to individuals as well. I have a short video, super short, 3 minutes, that'll explain it really clearly.
Our experiences during our early years actually affect how we think, feel, and behave. Adverse and traumatic childhood experiences can derail development, which is why it is important for schools to be trauma-informed. Adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, are sadly pretty common in our society. ACEs take various different forms, including abuse, neglect, domestic violence, and difficulties stemming from mental illness and drug and alcohol abuse in the family. ACEs are more prevalent in children from disadvantaged and under-resourced communities, and discrimination can add to the stress and hardship for some. Not all forms of adversity are traumatic, but many do cause harm. In the most severe and long-lasting cases of adversity, a child's psychosocial functioning can be inhibited. Among other things, this can impact their ability to form and maintain relationships throughout their lives. Schools can provide the perfect setting to promote resilience and lessen the effects of adversity, but for some children, experiences in school pose a whole other set of emotional challenges. Traumatized children can have difficulty regulating emotions, staying on task, and relating with others, which can prompt bullying from peers and harsh discipline from teachers. This treatment can add even more stress for children and can lead them to question their safety and develop mistrust in authority figures. This can be particularly impactful if those authority figures lack awareness in how trauma affects cognition and behavior, or if they are being limited by their own implicit biases, emotional challenges, or exhaustion. Efforts are underway to change how schools serve vulnerable and traumatized children. To do this, it's important to identify which programs are responsive to diverse student populations and which are most effective and sustainable. Our research shows that school-based trauma-responsive programs use a number of whole child and systems-oriented approaches. These approaches provide safe, nurturing, and supportive learning environments and therapeutic interventions when they are needed. They may also work to increase knowledge of trauma in school professionals, parents, and community providers. To become trauma-informed, schools must ensure that all students feel safe, respected, valued, and meaningfully engaged. Teachers and other school professionals must be able to identify symptoms of trauma and know their own biases and triggers to minimize the risk of traumatization. Social-emotional skills must be incorporated into classrooms to promote resilience and effective communication, and school professionals must establish and reinforce clear expectations for behavior. These core components can also be applied to other settings, such as child welfare and juvenile justice, to develop a broad and bold transformation of our child-serving systems.
Perfect. So just to reiterate, so trauma-informed care is really understanding experiences that individuals have had and how those experiences create feelings. From those feelings come behaviors and understanding what has happened to result in that behavior. Next, how we respond or engage that student really sets the trajectory. If we're going to be able to build relationships and help that student achieve academic success, which is the goal of the district. As we talk about trauma-informed care, it's really three pillars. It's creating safety. We want our schools to be seen as safe spaces, safe places for our students and our employees. We also want it to be a place of connections where students feel welcomed, connected, and have built relationships with individuals within the schools, their peers and adults. We also focus on managing emotions, which brings us to self-awareness and emotional management. So when we're feeling something, being able to put a name to the feeling, number one. And then number two, being able to manage our behaviors when we have those feelings. So those are the goals as we talk about becoming a model trauma-informed school district. Okay, on our journey to become trauma-informed, we have adopted. Should I break for a second? Un momento, por favor. Yeah, is it still playing in the background?
I was worried that my friends from my small hometown would look at me differently. I begged my mom and dad not to tell my teachers what had happened. There was a part of me that was actually happy that it happened over the summer because I thought
At first, I thought it was
No, it's
myself,
naive.
which is confusing enough.
When I went back,
Oh, it went on to someone else. Okay, perfect. All right, so back on track. So we've adopted, on our journey to become a model trauma-informed school district, we adopted the Missouri model for trauma-informed care, which you can see the theory of change, which is on the board, changes in knowledge, practice, culture, policy, and then systems changes. In this journey, we have began to educate everyone regarding trauma-informed practices, basic trauma, implicit biases. We are changing practices. We'll talk about it a little bit more, but you'll see the implementation of our restorative justice practices. Changes in practices include the transition from in-school suspension rooms to recovery rooms. And we also see changes in policy as we get into our revision of the Student Code of Conduct as just some examples. One thing that I definitely would like to address here on the next slide is that a trauma-informed school is never the absence of discipline. However, it is always the absence of punishment. So often what I hear is that trauma-informed school districts means that we aren't holding students accountable, or we don't have expectations. And that is very untrue. However, what we do is engage students in a manner where we're not punishing for a behavior that is undesired, but we're reinforcing behaviors that we want to see, right? So when we have a student that presents a behavior, they get dysregulated, they get annoyed, they get frustrated, and they typically run out of the room, we don't punish them for that. But as we work with them and engage them, and they get annoyed and frustrated, and we can identify it because we've learned the signs, their behavioral cues, and we engage them, and they are able to breathe or put their head down until they're ready to engage, reinforce that behavior. The reason we are transitioning from punitive forward district is because we see the impact it's having on our students and our data, right? We see that the disparities in our discipline is resulting in poor grades. It's resulting in chronic absenteeism. And so what we're doing to combat that is employing these trauma-informed strategies. When we talk about the code of conduct, I often hear it dubbed as the suspension ban. What I'd like to consider what I like to reference it is as a revision of what we expect from our students, that is inclusive of their voices, that allows for restoration and repairing of relationships when behaviors are demonstrated that may disrupt the learning environment, and also that helps facilitate strong relationships, right? The research shows us that a strong relationship with at least one adult can change the trajectory of a student's lives. As we look at the revision of the code, we want to highlight that we have identified, and on a couple next slides, I believe, but we're creating cultures of caring. We're not only are our schools being transitioned into safe spaces, we're creating safe spaces within schools for students and educators both, right? We are utilizing our restorative justice practices and strategies combined with our trauma-sensitive strategies. We have trauma care teams at each schools that have looked at the Missouri model and identified priority indicators and are working on strategies to transition our schools from their current rating in each indicator to the next rating. The revision of the Code of Conduct does include, for Group 1 behaviors, no suspensions for Group 1 or Group 2 behaviors. So these are behaviors we typically see that may be dress codes or attendance. It makes no sense if a student has chronic attendance to suspend them for that, right? Our goal is to keep them in school, in class where they're getting that quality instruction. So we really want to focus on those type of things that are resulting in unnecessary out-of-school days, and so we're addressing that. We can address disparities by having students in schools more. Same thing for our Group 2. These are some of the Group 2 behaviors that we're seeing, and I want to stress, as we have implemented no suspensions for these behaviors, the Code of Conduct does identify interventions to be employed. If we have a student that is in possession of tobacco-like products, suspending them from school does not change that behavior. We want to intervene, we want to assess, we want to identify if a cessation program is needed. We want to get them connected to resources that'll help us change the behavior to what we want to see. These are also some Group 3 and Group 4 behaviors that we've looked at, but I just want to highlight that as we carry out this great work, this good work, that we're putting resources in place in all of our schools to assist. We have Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 resources in place to help our school teams. We are addressing this from a multi-tier support system approach, which means we have individuals in place to provide interventions at all levels. Tier 1 is levels interventions that every student receives, right? So our restorative justice strategies, every student receives those. Social emotional learning, where students learn to identify their feelings and manage their behaviors, become aware of their triggers. Every student should be receiving that through push-ins, through our counselors, through group lessons, and through interventions with our restorative justice. What we see at Tier 2 is kind of a crosswalk. Our restorative justice coordinators are doing mediations. They're doing parent meetings. So this is a category not every student receives, but students who have been identified that need just a little bit more intervention, right? And then our Tier 3 students are a smaller population of students that we have identified that has experienced complex trauma or complex social stressors, or may even mental health issues that we're working with. And we have licensed clinicians on our team who are licensed with the state of Missouri to engage them, to assess and treat as necessary. So this is just a little really quick walkthrough of our journey, beginning in 2019, adopting the Missouri model. Some of the key points is we had a kickoff in February of 2020 where we brought our first cohort of 13 schools to the Trauma Informed Schools Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. We have identified trauma teams at all of those schools. We did initial ratings in each of the 12 Missouri model indicators to see where our schools were as a starting base. We explored the equity data for each school with their leadership teams. We identified priority indicators for school year 21 and implemented strategies to move the schools forward. We did end of the year ratings, and this year, this month actually, through our partnership with Alive and Well Communities, we have began our trauma walkthroughs with our first 13 school cohort. So this is an objective organization that is grounded in trauma work throughout the state of Missouri, that is going through our schools and assessing their progress. So we're doing some really great things. We have made some huge strides. Yes, there's still work to do, but we are committed, and this is where we are. One of the things I just wanted to share while I had this platform is we have also shared many resources with our leadership teams, including this one, Reaching and Teaching Children Exposed to Trauma and Fostering Resilient Learners. That kind of helps. We want them to have the same resources that some of our support staff have so that they can understand and they can also reference these resources to help with interventions other than suspension or punitive measures. All right. Are there any questions for me? I don't know, in the room? And then I guess, Camilla, you'll check the chat? Yes. Oh, okay, you're testing my brain here. So we have Northeast Middle, Northeast High, Paseo, Phillips, Hartman, Banneker, Troost, Anderson, Knotts, yeah, I can put it in the chat, but it's three of them I'm missing, only because you asked me on the spot, but yes, elementary through secondary, yes.
Ravana,
You're welcome. Yes.
it's Courtney here.
Okay.
Can you, well, here I am. Hi. Can
Yes,
you
I can hear you, Wiz.
Can you repeat the question? Because we only are hearing on the Zoom front, we're only hearing what your response is and not hearing the question.
Okay, perfect. So the question was, what were the first 13, the schools in the first 13, the 13 schools in the first cohort? I know, right? Finally.
Thank you.
And I also, it's my understanding that the video may have been playing low, so I think the link to the video was also put in the chat. If there are no other questions, thank you guys so much for allowing me the platform this afternoon.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate all that hard work that has gone into revising the code of conduct. And our next speaker, I believe our last speaker, is Kelly Waschel, our Chief Marketing and Communications Officer. I believe she's online. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, Angie. Can you all hear me okay? Testing. Sound.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, Angie.
I can hear you.
Well, good evening, everyone. I commit to 5 minutes of our time. I know we're getting close to the end time. I do apologize for not being there in person. I am under quarantine right now, and again, I very much apologize. I really wanted to be there in person to visit with you all and present this important information this evening. So it looks like we're gonna get our presentation pulled up. I cannot see the presentation. I can run it. I'll just look at my own screen. But can the audience there, Angie, see the slideshow?
They're pulling it up now for us, Kelly.
Okay, great. I just want to make sure that you can see it.
Yeah, I didn't know if you need, do I need to click for her, or is Courtney gonna do that? We're still working out this hybrid model.
I know. We've been doing this on our advisory team for Blueprint, so I completely understand. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of talk through a little bit.
Hi, Kelly. I'll click for you. People here just won't be able to see your face, but they'll see the presentation.
That's perfect.
So just let me know next, and I'll click to the next slide.
Okay. I want to make sure that I can see the... Okay, got it. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide, Camila. And the next one, please. Great. So, team, we'll talk a little bit about Blueprint 2030. And like Ms. Buckner said, I hope that the majority of you have heard about Blueprint 2030. This is our long-range planning, strategic planning, as well as 2030 vision for KCPS. And what I want to stress about how we're dreaming big and envisioning for this process, if we haven't been explicit yet in some of the conversation, essentially we have some big changes and some big moves to make in KCPS. The feedback that we've gotten thus far from our advisory team that has about 120 members from our board, from our current stakeholder surveys, thought exchanges, our student surveys that we have out there, is that we really want to focus on the student experience and what that looks like for our kids and for our families. Camila, go ahead and switch to the next slide, please. When we say student experience, you can see it's very much highlighted here out of the things we want from this process. Now, when we talk about student experience, that can mean a lot of things, and we've been getting your priorities through feedback thus far. What do our high schools look like? How many students per high school do we want in each of our high schools? What kind of programs? Do we want foreign language throughout our K through 12 experience? What about fine arts, music, vocal, instrumental? We've really been looking to our stakeholders, to our parents, our kids, our community to tell us what they think the answers are to these questions. And so next, go to you can't see the presentation on Zoom. Thank you, Dion, for saying that. We'll see if technology can kind of get that fixed for us here on the Zoom call. I'm going to kind of keep talking through this, though, in the meantime. Dion, thanks for the heads up on that. Perfect. This is what we have done thus far to really try to garner a lot of that feedback from multiple folks in the community. From May to September, we've been asking what priorities are for our families and for our kids. Thanks, Amanda. Perfect. We can see it now. We've talked to students in grades 7 through 12 through summer school, and we currently this week have an online survey going out for every student in the district that automatically pops up on their computers when they log in. So to Ms. Buckner's point, student voice is very important in this process, and we want to ensure that they have a chance to offer that voice in our decision-making process. We went and visited with every single school staff member who wanted to join us at the lunch periods throughout the spring, and so we wanted to very much get the staff voice in the process as well, as it will affect a lot of our staff, all of our staff across the board when we make decisions for Blueprint 2030. Our advisory team I mentioned, our school board, so Ms. Buckner, Ms. Wolfie's on this call, Ms. Jones, Dr. Jones is joining you all next month. Our board has monthly workshops around Blueprint 2030 so they can stay side by side with us in these decisions and in the conversation along the way. Camila, next slide, please. Oh, there we go. Okay, so this is where we want to hear from you. I committed to take about 5 minutes of your time, but on the screen, you and what Corey's put in the chat here, you can see these QR codes. We have a parent QR code, a Spanish one, and a staff QR code. This QR code will take you to a very quick Slido. It's 2, 3, 4, 5 questions about ranking priorities that we need to use as we go through our student experience priority process in this first month or two of this phase of engagement. So I do want to take 2 minutes. I really want all of you to go in here and quickly take this Slido, and then we'll close out with a couple more slides. And maybe because we're getting low on time here, I am going to keep moving, but like Courtney put in the chat and like what's on the screen, I really want you to, before you leave, before you close out, please participate so that we can make sure your voice is heard. So as we think about your voice, and as parents, you're very important for that peer-to-peer interaction. Other parents trust you as parents who are in the know and almost like spokespeople for our district when you're part of the DAC team. So we'll be gathering more feedback on the student experience priorities through the end of this month. And to Ms. Buckner's point, we have large-scale engagement that's getting ready to roll out starting in October. What this means is that there's going to be many opportunities for all of our families, our students, our staff, and our community to offer more feedback as we get to those scenarios and those recommendations throughout the fall. So I want us to really think about how we can recruit others to join us in the feedback and input process and join us in the advisory team, these DAC meetings, at board meetings, at board workshops. You all are invited to attend those and join the conversation along the way. Camila, one more slide, please. This is our Blueprint 2030 website. On the website, we have information, documents, all of our surveys are there. So if you want to refer someone to take a survey or get more information, this is a great resource that you can share with your peers, your neighbors, your friends, and other parents. Oh, and we have a little circle animation there. And then this is one of our final slides, but this talks about some of our timeline moving forward. As we get to October 6th, we have been condensing and consolidating all of the student priorities, student experience priorities thus far. We're going to talk about mission and vision, what we want for that student experience, and the associated costs, along with some facility conversation and goals and strategies. That October 6th board workshop is going to be a really big deal to start laying out some of the thinking around where we want our student experience to land. So again, How many kids at the high school level? How many high schools? Our middle school experience, does that need to be improved? Do we like the grade configurations of our middle school? In our elementary, what are the grade configurations there? How big should our elementaries be? Do we have some that are too small, some that are too big? What's the right size for our elementary population? And then we'll talk about kind of geographic location of our schools. Do they fit for everyone? Are they equitable for everyone in KCPS? We have around 15,000 students pre-K through grade 12 in KCPS, and we have about 33 campuses. So as we look at the number of campuses versus number of students versus what our families really want for their kids and what our kids want for themselves, athletics, sports, teams, extracurriculars, we've got to really think bigger and strategically for our families and kids on where we're going to be about 10 years from now. So October 6th is a very key date. November we'll be doing scenarios. We'll be refining those through November, December. And like Ms. Buckner said, as we get to January, February, we really want the board to have heard from many people to be comfortable making a decision for the future of KCPS. Okay, we're at the next DAC meeting. Please don't forget to participate in that Slido survey. It's really imperative that we hear your thoughts, and we're going to keep coming back to you along the way. So thanks for letting us talk to you about it, and we look forward to digging in all of those scenarios and all of those possibilities because we have some really big work to do.
Okay, Kelly, thank you so much. Does anyone else have any questions for Kelly or any of our speakers before we sign out? Nothing in the chat? All right, well, I'm going to take my yummy sandwich and eat it, and I'm hoping that I'll see more of you here next time, November 10th. Thank you all so much for joining.